Hi everyone, it's Nick with Build Up Advisory Group, and it's Fastball Fridays, a web series where we will quickly build what you know about infrastructure design in the nonprofit sector. Today's Fastball topic is using your budget to strengthen your infrastructure. Of course, your budget can strengthen your infrastructure. It's where you budget your revenue and your expenses, so there's a clear correlation between your budget and your ability to improve your infrastructure. The interesting part of a budget that I always suggest nonprofits and philanthropies include is an innovation line. You might be wondering what an innovation line even is and why it's sitting as a line item in a budget. After all, isn't the project itself or the work that you're doing innovative? So why would we need to call it out and budget for it? This is where the beauty lies in that line item. We've talked about innovation and the role that infrastructure plays in it in Fastball Friday episode numbers 18 and 19. We explained that innovation was not a thing, an outcome, and that it was instead a process. And we needed two building blocks: space to experiment and fail, and accountability. Those two building blocks are why building an innovation line into your budget is so critical. By incorporating this line into your budget, you're creating the experimentation space that you need for innovation, and you're allowing yourself to fail towards your ultimate goal because failing is a necessary part of innovation. How we react to failure is about our ability to understand and appreciate risk. By including an innovation line in your budget, you're bringing the risk conversation to your board, your funders, and your partners, not avoiding it or simply responding to it. In this sector, I find that we often talk around risk, barely defining it, sometimes pointing it out here and there in a grant application without showing the financial implications of failing and allowing space for the learning from that failure. In other words, we don't often budget for risk, and we rarely budget for progressive risk management or risk leadership, where we are not managing risk as though it is something to be avoided, but we're leading the conversation about it so that its winding path can ultimately lead us to success. By including an innovation line in your budget, you automatically create that space to experiment and force that conversation and an alignment of what we mean by the word risk. When we talked about innovation, the second building block was accountability. That your organizational infrastructure needs to be designed to require constant evaluation, reflection, and improvement, because that level of focused accountability will help you innovate. And when you include this line in your budget, you're accountable to produce against it, to think of what should be included that you can track and later evaluate. You know the saying, what gets measured gets managed, is true for innovation too, because remember, innovation isn't an output. It's an environment that leads to a sustainable transformation. An innovation line is not just a bucket that you can use as a catch-all. It's a specific set of considerations, a framework that allows you to see further opportunities within the activities of the grant or your organization. Adding this innovation line can hold you accountable to changing both your work and your impact. This line can appear in a project and an organizational budget. In fact, it should appear in all of your budgets. In every level of your work, you need to create the space to innovate, and you need to hold yourself accountable for pursuing it. When you prepare a project budget, include that innovation line and do not leave it as an other, a miscellaneous, or a catch-all. It's supposed to create a space for innovation within your work. When you construct your organizational budget, think about the overall innovation needed for your organization. Each of your project budgets should ultimately comprise this number. It is both art and science, and it is necessary. Oh, and it applies for both fundraising nonprofits and grant-making philanthropies. Yes, funders should also have an innovation line. Think of it as ways to provide space for your grantees to create and reimagine. It should frame the way you think about funding and your expectations of how you can partner with your grantees. And it's a crucial first step towards increasing more flexible support if you're one of those funders that doesn't believe general support funding can provide accountability. As an aside, if you're thinking that way, I really believe it requires a reframing of how you partner with your grantees, but that's another fast build for another Friday. I know it's not something you hear every day, but you should budget for innovation, to create space to experiment and fail, and to hold yourself accountable to pursuing innovation. If you're a funder, use it to give your grantee space to fail towards transformation. And if you're a grantee organization, use it to create new ways to amplify the voices of the communities you're trying to pull from the margins. Whenever you incorporate this line into your budget, know that you are bravely bringing the concept of risk leadership and infrastructure to the forefront of our funding conversations. And that's our Fast Build. I want to hear how you are thinking about using your budget to strengthen your infrastructure. I would love to hear from you and about your experience in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Have a wonderful weekend and keep building bravely.